this day, conscious of this Mother Earth who gives us life, who feeds us, who nurtures us, conscious of the ways in which we have not cared for and treated her in the depth of love and compassion that we owe some great being that is holding us in her arms. Members of the Indigenous community of URI will lead us in a water ceremony today. And I want to first invite two sisters from local communities to come and introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Isabella Zizi. I come from the Northern Cheyenne, Arikara, and Muskogee Creek tribes. I'm a member of Idle No More SF Bay. I'm also a signatory of the Indigenous Women of the Americas Defending Mother Earth Treaty. I'm going to pass it on to Melinda.
Thanks, Jay. My name is Melinda Miko. I'm Seminole Creek and Choctaw. I'm enrolled in the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma and also have European ancestry. I'm also a member of Idle No More SF Bay, the Grandmothers Group, which forms the core of Idle No More, and a signatory on the Indigenous Women of the Americas Defending Mother Earth Treaty, MADO.
So I just wanted to do a quick land acknowledgement. I don't know if it was done already, but I usually like to make it a land acknowledgement and respect to the Ohlone people of this land and letting us live here and be here. So a big O to the Ohlone people and for the ancestors for taking good care of this land for us to be here today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Idle No More SF Bay and then get into the beautiful water ceremony. So Idle No More SF Bay is a grassroots group that was originated out of a grandmother's prayer group. And this grandmother's prayer group would meet with one another once a month over 10 years or more. And they would pray for clean air, clean water, and clean soil for the generations to come after us. And that had integrated its work into the work that we do now. And we're very inviting for everybody and everyone because we understand the importance that it's taking now around our climate and around our original instructions to listen to Mother Earth, to listen to those Indigenous peoples who understand that relationship with Mother Earth and how much we have to protect her as well as protect humanity, our non-human relatives, and the generations who are yet to be born. And so I invite you today, if you're able to come on September 20th here in San Francisco, there's going to be this really beautiful, huge climate strike, as well as all over the globe, standing up with the youth and supporting the youth and all the movement that they're taking. And so please join us, idlenomore.sfbay.org, and stay tuned and get involved because we need everyone at this point. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and you will be pleased to know that we began our time yesterday with a land acknowledgement, and thank you for grounding us again this morning. There is one person who really, for us in URI, has been the keeper of a water ceremony since the very beginning, and that's our beloved brother Don Frew. So I ask Don to join us now.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. The Waters of the World ceremony began as part of the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the United Nations in San Francisco back in 1995. It was then carried forward and became part of the United Religions Initiative Global Summit here at Stanford in 1999. And now we're carrying it forward here.
Mongen, Uluma Pume. Sekar, Sakarik. Buenos días, good morning. Se dice que la tierra es una mujer.
The earth is said to be a woman.
Se llama Madre Tierra, Pachamama, porque de ella vienen todos los seres vivos.
She is called Mother Earth, Pachamama, because from her are coming all living beings.
El agua es sangre vital.
Water is vital life. Blood, sorry.
Fluye a través de ella. La nutre y la purifica.
It flows through her, nourishes her, and purifies her.
Good morning. In many traditions, water represents life force. In others, it symbolizes the divine spirit. We ourselves are at least 60% water. If two people from warring nations come together, they may be in conflict. But if they pour water from their homelands into a bowl, one water does not try to be higher than the other. They find a common level. One water does not stay separate from the other. They mix together as one. And so, the mixing of waters has come to symbolize the desire for peace that is the way of water.
These waters, there we go. These waters have been mixed and added to at ceremonies at the United Nations, the United Religions Initiative, the Parliament of the World's Religions, and the Golden Institute. They come from over 160 sacred water sources in 46 countries on all 7 continents and from the 7 seas. There will be a list on the URI website, but a sampling includes the snows of Antarctica, an Aboriginal sacred spring in the outback of Australia, the Missouri River at Standing Rock Reservation in the United States, the falls of Iguazu in Brazil, the Heavenly Lake in China, the Nile River in Egypt, the Chalice Well at Glastonbury in England, the Castalian Spring at Delphi in Greece, the Ganges River in India, Bridget's Well at Kildare in Ireland, the Jordan River in Israel and Jordan, the Sacred Well at the Ise Shrine in Japan, the Mountain Spring at Machu Picchu in Peru, the Holy Spring at Fatima in Portugal, the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, the Yarlung River in Tibet, the Euphrates River in Turkey, and the Great Salt Lake in Utah in the United States.
Yo regalo un poquito del lago de Atitlán, Panajachel, Guatemala.
I am bringing some of the water of my lake, a sacred place for us.
Oh, hey.
They have been mingled as a blessing. You can hear me. They have been mingled as a blessing for all. They have been mingled as a blessing for all living beings. Thank you, Victor.
Good. Good. Beautiful. Done.
Wait a moment.
I'd like you to do a really fast beat for me, or ask them to come. Just a second. What I need is a really fast beat, like a kind of like for like a pipe loading song. Here we go. So it didn't cost anything for people to come to this incredible, historic, powerful, inspiring, uplifting gathering. But we have just a little rule here. If you don't join us in singing, no, we can't proselytize, but we'd sure encourage you to join in singing. Otherwise, it'll cost a lot to get out. That was just kind of a joke. Just want to be corny a little bit this morning, have a little bit of laugh. But this is the very song that was sung on the opening of the ceremonies that opened United Religions Initiative. And really thank our sisters for being here. They're going to sing as well. I'm just going to sing 4 verses, but I want you to sing with me. The words are very simple. Wayankie, Wayankie. Can you say Wayankie? Wayankie. Wayankie means it calls upon the Creator, the power of the Creator to come here, to witness this, to witness us, to witness. And then it says, Chinupa Kile Wakayalo. It says the pipe, the sacred pipe is holy. But what it's saying is the bowl, which represents the feminine, the foundation of all life. That's the water. It's sacred. It's holy. It means the plant people have the power of growth. The plants are holy. They're sacred. Though the water doesn't become sacred because we do something, the water's already sacred. Then it says we always have like this beautiful drum that she's using. Wherever, we always have the animal people, the power of the senses. They're sacred. And we put the pipe together, we put the stone, the bowl, the feminine with the masculine stem. We put those together and life is created. Life from whence each one of us came. The water, and we're born to the water of life, which has the same salt content as the oceans of the whole world. And so here we are. So the song is Wayankie, Chinupa Kile Wakayalo Wayankie, because when you take the pipe and turn it upwards, you'll see the opening's this way. That's the human being standing there. We're sacred. We're born sacred. We're born that way. Anyway, that's how the indigenous world sees it. And we're all related. We're one human family. So we'll sing 4 verses. They're going to come out and bring this water out so we can share the blessings of this water out to the earth here in thanksgiving to the Ohlone people and their ancestors who are here. Okay, ready? Let's try one Wayankie. Wayankie. Chanupa Kile Wakayelo Wayankie 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 Chanupa Kile Wakayelo Wayankie. Now let's get a really good Wayankie, okay? Wayankie. 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 Wayankie, Chanupa Kile Wakayelo Wayankie. Sisters have a closing song for us. Please.
This is a water song that we offer as part of our treaty that we signed every new moon. And you're all invited to come to our water ceremony. It's at Cesar Chavez Park in the Berkeley Marina, and the upcoming one is July 2nd at 7:30. So we honor water, and we sing to it because we know that that water carries the memories of thousands and millions of years. And we join our water, it was done today. We bring water from around the world. We put it together and we sing it into the bay water so it can join with its relatives and be healed, because we've done tremendous damage to our water. So Isabella and I are going to sing the water song that we sing at every new moon when we carry that water. And it's always a young one who can, well, first of all, we grandmothers can't make it down the rocks, but it's also... It's also the acknowledgement that it's time for we grandmothers to pass on our traditional knowledge to the next generation. Okay. And that's what they're in the process of doing. Do you want a drum? Is that okay? We don't need to. We don't need to. Okay, all right.
Wichita,
do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya day. Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya day. Achachineya, hey ya, hey ya. Achachineya, hey ya, hey. Achachineya, hey ya, hey ya. Achachineya, hey ya, hey. Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya day. Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya day. Achachineya, hey ya, hey ya. Achachineya, hey ya, hey. Achachineya, hey ya, hey ya. Achachineya, hey ya, hey. Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya day. Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya day. Achachineya, hey ya, hey ya. Achachineya, hey ya, hey. Achachineya, hey ya, hey ya. Achachineya, hey ya, hey. Oh.
Malaimi vau ngen mapu ngen lila olone che olone mapu mlelu nielu ko lipam tu mapu kelu virkam tu kalal kelu ngane mapun om kuse om fucha eimita lutamiko eimita lutami newen eimita lutami kimen ngane mapun kom eimita mi piel meu traule paita mi puche kom tadoam tu intako tain vir kemoal tain kememongeleal tain kemeveleal ngien ko ngien mawida olone mapuche ngiliatu pelu ngelipu pelu tvachilila meu incheta kpanta kamapu kpalenta ko tanyi kalal meu tanyi pu machi tanyi pu ngien ko tanyi pu tayen ko dulinto eneu tanyi dungwal tvachilila meu Chaltumai.
Now, in our own language, we are going to connect with the spirit and the energy of the water.
Why don't, as you are able, why don't we stand, and rather than applaud, just let's take a deep bow of reverence and thanksgiving, gratitude for a moment for this gift that we have been given of water, of blessing. We open this space to a moment of silent gratitude. And now let's applaud. Thank you. Please be seated. We continue a beautiful day today with a first session on women's empowerment and environmental sustainability. We will slide things about half an hour, and so we will have our lunch at 1 o'clock, and we'll have the call to action keynote at 1:30, so we'll be back on schedule at that point. But we'll be about half an hour for each thing pushed this morning for session 4 on women's empowerment and environmental sustainability, session 5 on global organizations and grassroots partnerships. This afternoon, we have an extraordinary call to action series of events, a call to action keynote from Valerie Kaur, and a multi-voice piece by young leaders from around the world that they have created for us. And the action piece, the final action piece, which is for us to sit together and begin to create that action plan for ourselves as we leave here. So let me welcome Kiran Bali back to the stage to lead us this morning.
Thank you so much, Victor. This is such an exciting session. And before we begin, we're talking about women. Let's give a round of applause to all the women here. Woo! So the title of this session is Building Cultures of Peace, Justice and Healing for the Earth and All Living Beings. Women's Empowerment and Environmental Sustainability. Now, our environment is referred to as the divine feminine, Mother Earth who nurtures, nourishes, and provides all the essentials for our existence. And also that of millions of other species. But according to the United Nations Biodiversity Report, which is only dated last month, May 2019, 1 million species are going to be extinct very soon due to humankind. But can we use the word humankind? Are we kind? Are we kind humans? We must not forget that we are also a species. And we can talk about the next generation. We can say they will improve things, they will make the difference, but there may not be a next generation of mothers producing children. So what is it that women can do to save our planet? We have some wonderful speakers here today, so I would like to start by inviting Subi Dupa, who is the URI Regional Coordinator for North India and Afghanistan, to introduce our keynote speaker. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce before you an absolutely splendid and divine lady, Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati ji. I'm extremely happy to share that as simple as she looks, she's been bestowed with many accolades and recognitions for the amazing work that she does. Sadhvi ji, is a renowned female spiritual leader in India. She's the Secretary General of the Global Interfaith WASH Alliance, launched by UNICEF, the world's first alliance of religious leaders for water, sanitation, and hygiene. She's the president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education and empowerment to women and children. She's also the director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival, serving as the vice chair of the United Nations Advisory Council on Religion and on the steering committee of the Partnership for Religion and Sustainable Development. Sadhvi ji has received numerous awards and recognition for her leadership in India, including from the Cabinet Minister of Water Resources, as well as from the Ambassador of the United States to India. Originally from Los Angeles and a graduate at Stanford University, Sadhvi ji has lived at Parmarth Niketan for over 23 years now, where she gives spiritual discourses, satsang, and leads myriad of humanitarian programs. Please give her a big round of applause.
It's such a wonderful honor and a wonderful blessing to be here, and such deep, deep, deep gratitude to URI for this conference, yes, but also for what they're doing in the world to really remind us, you are I. When we toss it around, but if every time we tossed it around, we actually really remembered how many of the problems that afflict us today would be gone just in that, just in remembering, you are I. So thank you so, so much for the opportunity to be here. And when we talk about women's empowerment and the environment, when I first saw the email with the topics, I thought, oh, okay, this is great. 2 really good, important topics. And then as I sat with them, you realize, oh, wait, these aren't 2 topics. They're not just 2 aspects of development or 2 things to remember for any well-intentioned and functional NGO or FBO that we have to make sure to get checked off on our to-do list. Yes, women's empowerment. Yes, environment. But they are interlinked and interlocked in a way that is so deep and that runs on so many levels, from the logistic to the cultural to the spiritual. In most of the world's languages that have masculine and feminine properties, nature and the earth are feminine. In the Sanskrit language, the energy of creation, Shakti, that which creates all, that which moves the universe, feminine. That which is created, Shrishti, feminine. Nature, Prakriti, feminine. So that energy, that feminine energy, is the energy of creation, the energy of that which is created, that call to create. Mahatma Gandhi used to pray every day, "Oh Lord, make me more feminine." Why? Not make me more dainty, not make me more ladylike, not that. Make me more feminine, so that I may be more in touch with that energy of creation. And this brings about an important point that is worth mentioning as we're talking about women's empowerment. I don't have time to go into this aspect too much, but it's important to at least mention. When we talk about women's empowerment as the antidote to or antithesis of oppression, suppression, there's two aspects of that. One is the suppression and oppression of women, which we know is going on all over the world in a whole variety of places and ways, and we'll talk about that. And that needs to be remedied. But there's also a repression and an oppression of the feminine that doesn't just exist in women, but that exists in men. And the reason that that is equally important to remedy is when we speak about the environment and we speak about the earth, we speak about peace. This is not just a woman's job. This is not about, okay, now how are women empowered going to come together and take care of what women disempowered watched happen. But this is about how together the women and the men connected to that feminine energy are able to bring back a peace in our hearts, in our words, in our actions, therefore in our families, in our communities, in our nations, in our world, and to Mother Earth. The fact that we have used religion, have used some very misconstrued, misunderstood, misinterpreted notion, concept of dominion over the earth as an excuse to pillage her because somehow God has given us the right to do so is not only injustice, but it's sacrilege. Justice for the earth is justice for women. Because that same myth of separation, that same ability to other the other, that same yearning for power that stems from our deep-seated fear of powerlessness, that same objectification of all things feminine that enables us to rape the earth is what enables us to rape our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, and the women of this world. And so that myth of separation must be healed. And that is what we are here together to do. There's a story I love of 3 men who are stranded on a boat in the middle of the ocean. And as people do in any stressful situation, they start to fight. And as a response to their fighting, they decide, well, we will divide this boat into 3 equal parts so that each man can just stay in his own 1/3, and theoretically then we will stop fighting. So they weren't stranded with duct tape, but they draw imaginary invisible lines down the boat, and each man has his own 1/3. A few days later, 2 of the men look over and they notice a leak has sprung in the 3rd man's part of the boat. And they say, "Stop up the leak. This boat's going to sink. We're all going to drown." And the 3rd man says, "Oh, don't worry." He says, "It's only leaking in my part of the boat." And I love the story because we laugh and we realize, of course, that imaginary and invisible lines, or no imaginary and invisible lines, a leak in any part of the boat is going to bring the whole thing down. And yet, as we live in this myth of separation, this myth of othering the other that enables us to oppress and oppress the women and the feminine and the earth, we're all sinking. We're all drowning. As we speak more specifically about women's empowerment and the earth, we have to realize that the way that women are impacted by the environmental crisis is not just logistic, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the logistics, we'll talk about water, we'll talk about land, we'll talk about all of that. But it's deeper than that. Women are the earth. We say Mother Earth. We say Mother Nature. Women are the earth. In the Sanskrit tradition, there's a mantra that is recited very frequently that says Vasudev Kutumbakam, and it means the world is a family. But literally what it means, Vasudha, is the earth. And literally what it means is that all that of Vasudha is one. We are all one of Mother Earth, of Mother Nature. And we are here together as people of faith. And the power of faith is the power of oneness, of recognizing that that same creator and that same creation lives in us. And so, yes, we are one with the sacred creation, and we are one with the powerful creator, which means we have the power to make a change. And that is what we are being called upon to do. This is Sushila Devi. She lives in a slum of Delhi, of North Delhi. And water is running out in India. I'll show you slides after this of other parts of India. But in her slum, there's no water, except every day, theoretically, when the system functions, a tanker of water comes in. And one day last summer, the tanker came, and you can imagine what it's like. Imagine being thirsty, how excited we are to get a glass of water when it's been half an hour, maybe an hour since we've had one. But nonetheless, that feeling of thirst, that joy of having water. So you can only imagine, I can't even begin to imagine what that morning began like for her. So excited, the tanker's coming, they're going to get water, they'll have water to drink, water to cook with, maybe even water to bathe in. But there wasn't enough water, and fights broke out. And her husband and her son were killed in the fighting. Her husband's name was Lal Bahadur, and her son's name was Rahul. And they were killed in the fighting. And I share this, there's a lot of stories, I'm only going to tell this one, but I share this because this is the future of what's happening in our world, in this acceptance of the myth of separation. Well, she's different from us, she's separate from us, I can just go out and buy a bottle of water, we're all okay. Only for a very, very short period of time can we live in this myth of separation. This is the reservoir outside of Chennai, India, last week, where Chennai ran out of water, a city of 10 million people, the 6th largest city of India. That is the cracked floor of the dam. By 2020, which is basically today, 21 cities in India will have no more groundwater. We don't have time, unfortunately, to go into all aspects of the environment and what we're facing and what the impact is. I want to walk you through just very quickly a couple of the most dire statistics where we are today. So by 2030, India is going to have half the drinking water that it needs. By 2040, and these are UN statistics, these are Niti Aayog statistics, by 2040, the rest of the world will be there. That's basically tomorrow. Now, a lot of us work in different aspects of development and find ourselves convening in different places around the world, talking about aspects of refugees and displacement. Well, it is said that by 2040, we will have up to 700 million water refugees, UN statistics. Up to 700 million people displaced. Now, whatever you care about, whatever area you're working in, is it human rights? Is it safety? Is it food? Is it sanitation? Is it children? Is it education? Is it violence? Whatever area it is, what we know is it's exacerbated in people on the move. And so every single situation we are currently faced with is just going to get worse. So walking you quickly through our foundation, our Global Interfaith WASH Alliance is the world's first alliance bringing together leaders of the different religions together for water, sanitation, and hygiene. The work of Jiwa is expanding as we've seen the power of faith to change the way we think and therefore the way that we behave and live and the choices that we make with regard to aspects of ending open defecation, of sanitation, of hygiene. And we're now expanding it into areas of women's empowerment and ending taboos against menstruation, ending early child marriage. I have a couple-minute video I'll show you in a few minutes about that. And really what we've seen is the power of faith to change how people think and therefore how they behave. These are some of our programs on the ground. I don't have time to go through them. I do have some brochures that we can make available afterwards. But we are working, as we say, on the grand level and on the ground level. And the previous slides were some of the grand level slides. These are some of the ground level slides. Tree plantation. Getting children, and especially girls, together planting trees. Trees are in many ways on a logistic level moving from the theological, the philosophical, the heart solutions of oneness to the on-the-ground practicalities. Trees are the solution. In many parts of India and the world, our rivers come not just from glacial sources, but actually from trees. That's what makes the rivers flow, is the water that comes from the trees. And so tree plantation is something that is truly an answer, and it's something that we are deeply, deeply committed to. And just to give you one incredible statistic, one oak tree in 1 year gives 40,000 gallons of water back into the environment. This is aside from the shade it gives. This is aside from the oxygen it gives. It's aside from the carbon dioxide that it absorbs. It literally is the water that it breathes, pumps out back into the environment. So if you can do nothing else, plant trees. So, as I mentioned, we are working, bringing together the power of faith, the power of faith leaders for change. This is a short video that I wanted to share of programs that we're doing particularly related to women's empowerment, ending the early child marriage, which we know is mostly for girls, and ending the taboo around menstruation. The program that you'll see here was in the Kumbh Mela recently in Prayagraj with 250 million people who came together, drawn simply by the power of faith. And we are committed to harnessing that and seeing how in that faith we can share with people ways of thinking and therefore living differently.
The Global Interfaith WASH Alliance, a unique effort that harnesses the power of faith to bring about lasting change. A humble endeavor to improve sanitation and hygiene, to empower women, and to create a future that is healthy and happy for all.
भारत के ऋषियों के वो संस्कार, भारत की ऋषियों की वो संस्कृति, उसको जिंदा रखने के लिए हमें अपनी मातृशक्ति को सम्मान देना होगा। सच मानिए, नारी को सामान से मत भरिए, नारी का सम्मान करिए। नारी का सम्मान ही उनका सच्चा आभूषण है।
Thousands of women, local women, women from villages, girls coming together for a massive program for the equality, for the upliftment, for the actual logistics, the toilets, the education, the hand washing, the ground level and the ground level, to uplift, to change, and to transform the world.
Jiva brings together faith leaders, decision makers, and experts, giving a new hope to young girls and women across the world.
In that it comes together in India, bringing the 5 religions together, and the power of one voice of religious leaders, particularly as we saw yesterday, women, is incredibly powerful.
अपनी बेटी को इतना योग्य बना दो, चाहे आप जो बनाओ, जो बनेगी भगवान के विधान से, लेकिन उसको वो दिशा दो, उसके ऊपर वो सारे रिसोर्सेज लगा दो। उसको IAS बनाओ, उसको IPS बनाओ, उसको डॉक्टर इंजीनियर बनाओ। चाहे मंथली तो एक नेचुरल प्रोसेस है, यदि मंथली नहीं होता तो दुनिया में कोई पुरुष ही पैदा नहीं होता।
जो तुम्हारी लड़की है, अभी ढंग से उसकी पढ़ाई नहीं हुई है, अभी ढंग से ना वो साफ सफाई समझ रही है, अभी ढंग से ना उसने गृहस्थी समझी है, कैसे करना ये नहीं समझा है, अभी ना वो ताकत उसमें आई है, ना तुमने ढंग से खिला पिलाया है, उसको ताकत दी है, तो फिर अभी गृहस्थी में ढकेलोगी कैसे?
अगर हम नारी शक्ति का वास्तव में नारियों को सशक्तिकरण शक्ति देना चाहते हैं तो हमें उनको अच्छी शिक्षा देनी होगी।
अगर आपकी माँ, आपकी पिता, आपकी नानी, नाना, दादी, दादा, अगर सभी लोग सफाई की कर्मचारी थे, आपके बच्चों उनकी शिक्षा करा दीजिएगा, उनको स्कूल में भेजिएगा, और अगर उसके लिए कोई भी सहयोग चाहिए, आप हमको बता दीजिएगा, तो हम आपकी सहयोग करेंगे उनकी एजुकेशन में।
to eradicate misconceptions, meaningless boundaries, and taboos, to change the values, thought processes, and behaviors that create water scarcity. To end discrimination and violence on the basis of gender, caste, and creed, to create a world where all are equal, where children have a right to childhood, where education comes before marriage, where no one dies due to lack of water, hygiene, sanitation, or violence. This is Jiva, changing the world one small step at a time.
In my last 1 minute, us here today, people of faith, we must, number one, end this myth of separation. We must end our complicity with a system that is working to feed us separation on the basis of race, on the basis of religion, on the basis of socioeconomic status, on the basis of color, of culture, of sexual orientation, of gender, of course. We must absolutely refuse to be part of that. We have the answer. The answer is the oneness that all of our religious traditions in our own languages, in our own ways, in our own gospels have told us. Religion, faith, gives us the power of knowing what to say no to and knowing what to say yes to. And we must use both of those powers today. We must use the power of no, the power of resistance, using our grounding and our anchoring and our truth in our faith to resist that which we know must be resisted. To resist it with our words, with our actions, with our dollars, with our votes, and with our implicit and explicit agreement to be part of a world of separation. And we must use our yes to come together in the oneness that we know we are. And my last slide I wanted to share with you, because we're here in Northern California. So these are the redwoods. And most trees, as we know, grow tall and strong because their roots are deep in the earth. The redwood is different. The redwood's roots are actually not so deep. But what they are, and these are the oldest and tallest trees in the world, is those roots are interconnected. The roots of every tree in a redwood forest are connected to the roots of every other tree in the redwood forest. And that, as we talk about accelerating peace, the only way to accelerate peace is to become reconnected, to remember our connection. And with that, as we close, I would just ask you all to join me and to rise as we are connected, and to raise your hands together with the beautiful inspiration of the redwoods in front of us, and to raise our hands together in a pledge and a commitment that we will not be co-opted into an illusion of separation, and we will stay grounded and rooted and anchored in our awareness and truth of our oneness with all of creation, with the Creator, with everyone and everything. Thank you. Will you bring me a plant? And with that, I know last night our leaders of URI honored and awarded so many people, so many deeply, deeply worthy organizations and people. And I wanted to just take a moment to honor them. In Rishikesh, we give tree saplings, but here we have saplings of the azalea bush, because I've been told that the azalea flowers are the first to blossom and the last to lose their blossoms. And as people of faith, we must, in the words of Khalil Gibran, give our fragrance like the flower gives its fragrance to the shoe that has stepped upon it. And the work that URI is doing to spread life and fragrance and flowers all over the world, I would love if Victor and Karen, and of course, if Bishop Swing could come forward and we can honor you with this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so, so, so much.
I'd like to plant this at my house.
Yes. There you are, Bill.
We actually have two. One can be for your house, one can be for the office.
Thank you. Dear Sadhviji, thank you so much for your inspiring and passionate contribution. We're so privileged to have you here. And thank you for highlighting, indeed, the dire consequences of what we are seeing through climate action, water shortage, and the important work that is being done. So thank you for all your hard work, and we look forward to working with you going forward. Let's give Sadhviji another round of applause, please. So it's so wonderful to have all these change makers amongst us, and it is a huge pleasure now to introduce the Women's Earth Alliance. We will refer to them as WEAR. So founded in 2006, the Women's Earth Alliance has implemented 125 women's environmental and entrepreneurship projects in 18 countries, training, funding, and catalyzing 5,000 women to advance safe water, clean energy, regenerative farming, women's land rights, and much, much more. WEAR's model creates cascading benefits. To date, WEAR leaders have equipped over 1 million more people with life-giving environmental solutions. WEAR's vision is that the women worldwide who are safeguarding a thriving home for all of us are never alone, and that they have what they need, not only to survive, but to thrive. Their mission is to equip women with the skills and tools they need to protect our earth and to strengthen our communities from the inside out. They work with leaders who build up other leaders. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 become 8, and so on. In 2017, in direct response to the divisions and the violence that we face in our world, we have joined forces with URI to launch the exciting Ripple Academy, a coordinating training curriculum that supports women leaders to build peace and to end conflict whilst creating impactful social and environmental solutions. And these solutions improve conditions in the regions, they uplift more women, and they create global ripples of change. It is a huge honor to welcome here Amira Diamond and Melinda Kramer to accelerate peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here. And there's two of us standing here, but we represent thousands of women around the world who are taking a stand for this earth. And we're joining the hands with them and hands with our URI community around the world. And it couldn't be a more powerful direction for this work to move, as Sadhviji just described so powerfully. We'd love to start with a short video about our work.
We truly are in a very precipitous time. Precipitous in terms of, do we choose to continue as a species here?
What would the world look like if women protecting the earth were supported and united? Every day, we work to answer that question. We identify women leaders in some of the most underserved and environmentally threatened parts of the world, and we support their leadership because we know these women have the answers. They know what they need to do. All they need is a little bit of support and connection to other leaders.
Immediately, the thing that stands out is the boldness of Women's Earth Alliance in mixing the sacred and the technical. In addition to talking about the legal frameworks and ways to get involved, there are also spaces to have real hard conversations about what are some of the colonial, racist, classist, all kinds of dynamics that each of us are carrying inside, and that if we don't take a very hard look at those as advocates, we will just be perpetuating the problem, and that in itself is quite radical and important work.
Those who are currently advocates in this network, they're asking the right questions, and they want to help. And they understand the need to be open-minded and to learn something from our indigenous peoples and how we can work together.
A really important part is to create a network of empowered, of resourced and mobilized grassroots rural women leaders and trainers who will then spread this knowledge to their networks, to other women's groups. This is not a top-down model where we have experts who are teaching women about these techniques. It is really the exchange of knowledge and solutions that these women leaders have been already implementing in their communities, and most importantly, bringing back the dignity into the traditional knowledge systems of women farmers, which has been completely eroded in this larger paradigm of industrial agriculture.
It's working with people who are working with real farmers, and it's just not armchair thinking and armchair practice. It's local resilience which counts. It's local participation that counts. It's about people who have to deal with it, not in the future, they have to deal with it today. I feel that whatever little I can give back, I want to give that back in my lifetime.
The power of change, of transformation, when groups of women work together, you can feel the emotion in the room. When the women are singing, when they're sharing stories, it's quite amazing.
The solution lies with us, and the answer is with us women. I expect them to get down to the ground, and myself included, get down to the ground and build a mass of grassroots women who are ready to talk in their communities, influence decisions and advocacy and lobby for change in various development aspects within our communities.
There are times that I face challenges and I look back and say, wow, what brought me into this? But a moment after, when you see that you brought hope to people that has no hope, you forget about all this, and the joy springs up within you that you're affecting humanity positively.
Everything that we did here is literally going to ripple out in 30 more ripples. I can just see these like little raindrops just rippling out.
People always say to me, why aren't you working locally? There's so much work to do right at home. Why are you doing global work? But this is a small planet. and we are so close to each other. Local is relative. We are all in it together. There's nowhere that's not local here.
I know that we are transforming this world, and I know that we are inextricably linked. We are an unstoppable movement of women, transforming, rising.
There are so many people that have money and they don't know where to spend it, and they spend it lavishly. But this organization, they have the law of human being, and they have seen our need. For them devoting their life, their money, and their time to come and help us in this country, we are very grateful.
So what we're all trying to do here, what each and every human being that came and gave up these days when they could be doing anything, but each and every person has chosen this moment to make a difference, to make use of the gift of life by giving back to each other, by giving back to make sure that there is a future for humans on earth.
So hopefully you can feel and be with some of the women and people who are part of this incredible growing alliance that's opening our arms to incredible partnerships like URI. The story of Women's Earth Alliance is similar to URI's founding. We were founded in 2006 with 30 women from 26 countries coming together with a common understanding, an understanding that we were standing on the shoulders of generations, a tradition of women fiercely protecting our earth and our communities, and also a troubling tradition and trend of women being disproportionately impacted by every environmental issue that our world faces. Women are 11 times more likely to die in a climate-related disaster. Women literally hold the toxins of our world in our body fat in a more significant way than our male counterparts. Women are walking long distances to fetch water or fuel, and they're missing out on contributing to our economies and to the vision and the solutions for our future. And so this group came together. Kaisha Atakanova from Kazakhstan, who personally, with her group, mobilized the support to stop nuclear waste from being commercially imported into her country. And Patti Luis Corso, who saved the Sierra Gorda mountains and made them protected for generations to come. And Sizani and Gubani from South Africa, living in a place where the drought was so bad that mothers were having to feed their children clay. And providing the food security and bringing women together to change that. And these leaders knew that there were thousands others that they could touch. If they could build a power base, build an alliance across cultures, across religions, across sectors, to come together with the solutions of our time, and to share that and build that with our grassroots alliances. And so that's the beginnings of Women's Earth Alliance, and here we are 13 years later.
I'll flash forward to one of the most, I will say, one of the most significant years in WIA's growth, which was the meeting of United Religions Initiative and WIA, which very quickly turned into the merging of hearts, minds, and models. And together, we have launched an absolutely action-oriented interfaith women's empowerment and environmental sustainability initiative that we call the Ripple Academy, because it's based on the belief that when women have these skills and tools, the solutions that they bring to bear ripple throughout communities and throughout our world. Always, WIA has had this strain of doing peace-building work and conflict resolution, which exists so much around issues of natural resource management. And URI has such a rich community of women's leadership that the natural convergence of our two organizations has led to this academy that was launched last fall when WIA and URI came together in India, and we had the great honor of working with WIA's team, Alice and Jaya, and I thought it was our team. And our collective team. And the URI India group, Bishwadev and Subi and Katub. And together, we put out a call for nominations for women who could participate in the Ripple Academy, and they came forward in numbers. And we selected women from throughout India and Nepal, Adivasi women, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, women 20 to 60 years old, representing their cooperation circles, their NGOs, representing their communities, and working on issues alongside implementing solutions related to water protection, plastic pollution, regenerative agriculture, tree planting, land rights, and so much more.
There was Kalpana, one of the participants from Hyderabad, where there was an urban lake that serves 7 million people of that city that is toxic and is poisoning the groundwater and having people become sick. Well, Kalpana came to this program committed to doing something about that problem. Her work was already underway, and with the support of this network, with access to training and getting her impact and her design and her solutions together, she was able to go back into her community and get a multi-sector campaign together that has permanently protected that lake. And for the first time, she wrote us the other day that for the first time they saw fish again in that lake.
So ultimately, what this work is about is a plan. It's about a plan that we can implement that can uplift our communities from the inside out and really bring forward the grassroots leadership that we all know here in this circle is critical. We look forward to the years to come and to the rippling of the Ripple Academy throughout WIA and URI's networks. And thank you for having us here today. No,
yeah. Are we sitting? Are we sitting? Yeah.
Thank you, Melinda and Amira, for your wonderful work. We are all in it together. That was a key message that came through for me. We are all one family. How are we going to take collective action? It's clear our planet is in peril, but is there something we can do on an individual level? How can we become better stewards of the environment? So as we are bringing chairs onto the stage and before we invite our panelists up, I would encourage you to think about one small change that you can make in your own life, one lifestyle change that's going to help mitigate the impact of climate action as we are seeing today. And maybe we could share some of those at the conclusion of this panel. So could I invite some of my wonderful panelists now to slowly join me up on the stage. In form of an introduction, I would like to say that as women's lives and well-being continue to be disproportionately impacted by the ongoing violence and the injustice and the oppression that we are seeing, we're seeing the impact of environmental degradation. Interfaith peace builders are here to ensure that these critical issues are engaged on a global level. So this session is going to explore the issues with on-the-ground examples, and we're going to invite our participants into dialogue around strategies for women's empowerment and environmental sustainability. So I would like to invite on stage Despina Namwembe, Swamini Adityananda Saraswati, Sophia Painikio, and Monica Willard. Please join me on the stage. Let's have a round of applause for these wonderful women. Thank you so much. So we have on our panel some wonderful change makers, doing things on the ground, translating words into action. And we are really looking forward to hearing from you and learning from you. And maybe there are things that we can replicate in our own communities as well. So let's start then with Despina Nemwembe, who is the regional coordinator for URI Africa Great Lakes. Please inspire us, Despina.
I thought I was going to be the last one because because it is actually late in Africa, so I say good evening from Africa, and I'm so happy to be here. I want to say that there are two things that I've learned in my way of empowering women or empowering anybody. That we have to learn to embrace the social-cultural dynamics, or to learn the social-cultural dynamics of those people that we are trying to empower. Because sometimes we come with the understanding that we know so much in the areas where we want to empower people, and it really doesn't help. I've learned the bad way. Some of the learnings are so embarrassing because I came with the understanding that I know so much to certain communities when doing my work. So I had to change, because you come with all these value judgments of a particular community and you feel you know so much and you can empower from your own perspective, but that didn't work for me. So I had to do it in a different way. And I started by doing baseline surveys to get to know what people really need, how they relate, to get to know them a little bit. And the other thing that I really tried to do, and my second point on that, and maybe my last one, because I don't know how long we are supposed to speak, was basically to try and ensure that the people that I'm trying to empower own the process. Because if they don't own the process, they will not sustain it. Because, for example, if you're targeting women, and you know that women are your primary beneficiary of whatever you're trying to empower them with, also, maybe you, like in the case of Africa, you have to also empower the men, because if you don't empower the men, they make most of the decisions in the community. So you have to ensure that all these categories of your primary and secondary beneficiaries, they own the process from the word go when you start the empowerment process. And this has really helped me to move some of my work forward so easily, because I understand, first of all, the social-cultural dynamics. I try not to impose value judgments on these people. So I walk into the empowerment with a clear mind and understanding of the people that I'm dealing with. For example, a small example. In Africa, in most parts of Africa, not the whole of Africa, if you found a woman and you said, oh, you've added a little weight, you look great, she will say, thank you. So you come to the United States and say that? I think you'll be hated forever, you know? So some of these things are really about the local setting and understanding people, whether you're working with the refugees or you're working with the young people, you try to let them, or try to understand a little bit about them.
Thank you so much, Despina. Educating, empowering, energizing. These are three key parts of ensuring that people on the ground take ownership. So once we've completed that process, we want other people to continue, to take that ownership and take things forward to a new level. Thank you so much for sharing, Despina. It is now a huge honor to introduce Monica Willard, our superstar URI representative at the United Nations. She's already graced our screens yesterday, and it's wonderful. Monica, please do share about some of the fantastic work that you are doing.
I am so excited and so honored to be here for the entire conference here, Accelerate Peace. You've chosen to be a part of something that is so needed. And I was trying to decide what would capture some of the meaning that we've heard from already this morning, how interrelated, how one we are. And I want you to kind of hold your hands in a little cup. You are holding the fate of the planet in your hands. What are we going to do? What are we going to do together? I ask that question for two reasons. The first is you have to bring your heart and your spirit into anything you choose to do. And when you start with that and with a purpose, we can accomplish a lot. We've heard some tremendous stories today. We've seen the amazing work of GWASH. We've heard from other people all day yesterday. But it's up to us to accelerate peace, and we're not going to do it alone. So what I would like to invite you to do is to consider a program of action that many people are thinking about and working on. And it is a week in September, although it actually is only 6 days, so that you can add the 7th as opposed to resting. You can choose how you're going to apply your action. From September 21st, the International Day of Peace, to September 26th, the day for the total elimination of nuclear weapons. We are carrying some very important dates in our hearts and in our hopeful plans as you hold the fate of the planet. The theme for the International Day of Peace this year is Climate Action for Peace. We have to integrate it. We have to work together. It has to be women and men. It has to be children, elders. It has to be all of us taking action for peace. And all of the actions that we can plan, whether it is in a tiny village, whether it's in a major city, whether it's in your church, your synagogue, under a tree, at a library, we can do something. And one of the things that we got I think, a wonderful start yesterday as we were looking at nuclear weapons. And in each of your packages is the nuclear prayer. I invite you to join us for prayer on both September 21st at 12 noon, because that has been the International Day of Peace call since it started. The first International Day of Peace opened the General Assembly on September 21st in 1982. It was a resolution from 81, so there's always a question, do you count it from when the resolution passed or when it was first done? But we count it as September 21st, 1982. There was another International Day of Peace that changed the world in a different way, because the International Day of Peace had started on the opening of the General Assembly, which in 2001 happened to have been September 11th. And being in New York City that day, I saw peace in action. We were surrounded at St. Bartholomew's. I went into meditation with Audrey Kitagawa. But we saw a city that really cared in the face of a disaster. And I bring that to mind because it is our charge to make sure there is never a disaster, another nuclear disaster. So it is essential for us to take care and to really apply our prayers, our spirit, our actions, our walks, and keep in mind the day for the total elimination of nuclear weapons. And I want to remind you that this International Day of Peace is on a weekend. There are so many activities being planned within the URI, at the United Nations, and on September 20th is the Student March for Climate Change, which was announced this morning. It's also the day that we will be having 800 students at the UN with Messengers of Peace. And I hope that we will be able to see a familiar face on that screen. So we will see if our wonderful youth from yesterday will be chosen by the UN to be the moderator. She has been suggested, and we'll lobby for that hard. And so I just want you to hold in your hand the fate of the planet and make plans to join the week for climate change, the week for peace, looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, whatever you choose to do. Invite as many people as you can to join you. And join me now with the way I'd like to end it, by using the prayer that I use so often and that we use so often in this organization. May peace prevail on earth.
Thank you so much, Monica, for your call to action and for describing the wonderful work that has been going on for years now, especially that around International Day of Peace on the 21st of September. So we encourage everyone to get involved there and let's work as a team and let's take this forward. And just touching on the SDGs, you know, they are so important. However, every SDG will fail if we have no drinking water or no water to farm with. So that's why we need to take action now. Let me now introduce our next speaker. It's a privilege to introduce Sophia, who is the Mapuche Indigenous leader. She is also a URI Global Council trustee. And I'd also like to introduce Maria Crespo, who is translating for us. Thank you very much.
Chipianam inche pita niñuke ngungi pingelu mari kompuche mari repeat mari. Es importante.
It is important
saludarse
that we greet each other
a la distancia y ese
even though we are distant.
Y cuando uno saluda debe saludar en voz alta para que todo el mundo escuche. Aquí por los vidrios no van a salir muchas nuestras voces, pero para conectarnos con el entorno, para saludar a todo el mundo que nos rodea, esa biodiversidad es saludable.
When we greet each other, it is so healthy that we say this in a loud voice so that even the plants, everyone knows that we are greeting, that we respect each other.
Es una forma de demostrar a nuestra Madre Tierra que estamos sanos, que estamos a gusto, que la queremos.
This is also a way of showing Mother Earth that we are happy, that we love Mother Earth, and that we are here in a good relationship with each other.
Mari, es decir, que somos todos iguales. Los seres humanos tenemos 10 dedos, los otros seres también son nuestra familia.
So when we say Mari, we are saying that we are all equal. We all have 10 fingers. Nature is also part of us, and we are equal on this Mother Earth.
El itofilmongen, la biodiversidad,
Biodiversity.
Son nuestros hermanos, nuestros parientes mayores y menores.
Our biodiversity shows us that we are equal, that they are brothers and sisters of us. Mayor, minor, we are all in one.
El pueblo mapuche, la nación mapuche en Chile, está sufriendo de sed, su tierra y todo su entorno.
The Mapuche land is suffering thirst. Its people, its environment.
Las aguas, la vertiente, los ríos que bajan de la cordillera, de las más altas cumbres.
So the water that comes down from the high top of mountains, that come in rivers that are spring waters,
no están llegando a los lugares de nuestros espacios o territorios.
They are not coming to our places where we are settled.
Porque se han hecho muchas represas, pues.
Because many dams were created in the place.
Porque se ha contaminado el agua, se le ha puesto cloro y una serie de líquidos para limpiar el agua. Según el agua está sucia, lo que sale del cerro está sucio.
So, because of the chemistry that has been given to the water, these waters are polluted. These waters are not safe for us to drink.
Todo el mundo está desnaturalizado.
The world has become denaturalized.
No le demostramos amor, respeto a la naturaleza.
We are not showing respect, love to nature.
Nosotros, los indígenas, visitamos los cerros, aguas de vertiente, los ríos, los lugares donde están los administradores del agua para conversar y llevar un regalo y decir, aquí estamos, gracias por darnos vida.
We often go to the hills, to the spring waters, and we sit with them and tell them that we love them, that we appreciate them, that we are there gifting them something because they are giving us so much.
Pero eso ya no se está haciendo.
But we indigenous people do that, but not everybody does that.
No es accesible para nosotros una montaña, no es accesible el río que pasaba por allí.
So we used to do this and it was easier for us, but now it is difficult to get close to the river or close to the spring water or go up to the mountain.
La naturaleza necesita visitarse, así como nosotros nos visitamos en nuestras casas y nos saludamos, nos abrazamos, nos respetamos, nos llevamos regalos y nos compartimos.
So we often go to a neighbor's house and take presents and we greet each other and we have a conversation. Nature does need that too.
¿Por qué no somos creíbles cuando estamos desde un escritorio con un libro en la pizarra diciendo hay que cuidar el agua?
We are not credible when we are sitting at a desk, reading a book, giving orders. We have to take care of water. We are not credible.
Sí es importante educar.
It is really important to give education.
Pero un momento en el año, en el mes, tenemos que hacer esa manifestación, abrazar la naturaleza.
At least once a month we should go and visit nature. We should leave our desks and go where nature is.
Y toda la contaminación nos ha provocado nuestras propias enfermedades que tenemos hoy, a nosotros seres humanos, y los demás seres vivos se están muriendo porque hay el agua contaminada, el agua sucia.
So this has brought a lot of illnesses, so that we are not in connection with water and with nature. Is killing us because we are not only water is polluted, we are polluted. We are ill because of this pollution in nature.
El agua es el primer elemento para nuestras vidas y para toda la biodiversidad, el estrofilmón.
Water is vital for us, but also for biodiversity.
Podemos aguantar estar quizás con el sol un poco escondido, pero sin agua no vamos a vivir mucho rato, mucho tiempo.
If sun does not shine, if it is not there for a while, we can still live. But if we don't have water, we won't be living anymore.
Qué importante cuando hicimos la ceremonia del agua y dice Dan Fromm, dice, esta agua viene de Naciones Unidas y la usa para ceremonia.
How important it was when Don Fru came to us and told us that the waters that he was presenting is water that came from United Nations or from different parts of the world.
Es lo más hermoso que he escuchado esta mañana.
This is the most beautiful I have heard this morning.
Que en Naciones Unidas
that in United Nations
se preocupen de traer agua de todos los puntos del mundo.
That they are worried that to bring waters from all parts of the world.
Para hacer una ceremonia.
To have a ceremony here.
Así lo hacemos los mapuches cuando hacemos nuestra ceremonia en nuestro altar.
Mapuche people, when gather around the altar, always bring water.
Pero eso no significa que no debemos visitar el mar, no debemos visitar el agua corriente, los ríos, los esteros, yo no sé traducir Trayenco, Huichunco, Traichaico, las cascadas, donde nace el agua. En Mapudungún lo sé, en castellano tampoco.
So she says that she doesn't even know the name in Spanish, but what she is saying is that it's nice that we bring water, but it is also very important that we go to water, that we go to the springs, that we go to the river, that we go to the lakes. and visit them.
Desde allí viene el agua limpia, nace el agua limpia. Nosotros la
clean
contaminamos.
water comes from there. We pollute that water.
Ayer se hablaba de ignorancia.
Yesterday we spoke about ignorance.
Es verdad, hay mucha ignorancia para los propios pueblos originarios hoy.
So there's also ignorance for indigenous people here too. Indigenous, not here, indigenous people too.
Indígena y no indígena.
Indigenous and non-indigenous are ignorant.
Sí, tenemos que conocer, tiene que haber acercamiento, tiene que haber acompañamiento.
There has to be closeness. There has to be accompanying.
Respeto.
Respect.
Cuando no hay respeto, se hace de una sola forma. Cuando no hay reconocimiento.
When there's recognition of diversity, there's no respect.
Todas las formas de manifestación de los pueblos originarios y de las culturas son muy importantes.
All the manifestations of the different cultures are very important.
Tenemos que avanzar de acuerdo a la ubicación geográfica donde nos encontramos y respetar ese lugar para que puedan empoderarse de con sus propios valores.
It is important that we enhance the values of the places we go and we visit and bring that so we are respectful of different cultures and ethnicities.
¿Sí? Muy bien, sí. Bueno, tendría muchas cosas que decir.
I have a lot of things to share with you.
Uno a veces quiere decir cosas lindas para que nadie llore, nadie diga, otra vez los indios están reclamando.
So sometimes we want to say beautiful things so that people in an audience feel, oh, that's nice. They are not protesting. They are not crying. Indigenous people can't be crying again.
Pero sí tengo que decir que
But I have to say,
en mi tierra está lleno de árboles exóticos
my land
foráneos
is full foreign trees
que han extraído con sus raíces el agua.
and because they are foreign and they are not adapted to the place, they have taken all water.
Se mueren muchos animales, toda la biodiversidad se está muriendo, hasta la flora y fauna.
In my place, animals and trees and plants are dying.
Además, hay una contaminación acústica.
There's acoustic contamination
porque las grandes empresas forestales
because forestry enterprises
pasan con mucho camión y camión
have a lot of trucks and machines,
y el camino es puro polvo, no hay cemento.
and because of course it is land, it is not pavement,
y tierra que se va ensuciando las casas, la ropa.
so clothes and houses are getting dirty,
y el ruido,
dust,
el ruido de los
and the
camiones que pasan.
contamination of the noise of the trucks are affecting all of us.
Bueno, dejo aquí para que otra persona pueda hablar. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophia and Maria. If I could just pick up on a couple of points. Mother Earth is giving us everything, but we are not giving Mother Earth the love and the respect that she deserves. Water is our life. We all agree. But what about life in water? What about the plastic bottles of water that are entering the oceans and entering the bodies of sea life? So as we continue to have these discussions, especially into the break, let us not forget those who are impacted. Be the voice for the voiceless, those who live inside the water, who are seeing the impact of human waste going into their life, into their journey, into their environment, and are suffering horrible consequences as a result of it. It is a huge honor now to introduce our next speaker, Swamini Adityananda Saraswati, who is Director of Programs, Policy and Development of the Global Interfaith WASH Alliance, and is also an at-large trustee of the URI. Thank you.
My Beloved friends, I am so grateful to be in front of you today, with you today, and together today. When I was a little child, I used to get in trouble in school all the time by looking out the window and just staring at the trees. And I'd like to invite you to join me in doing that right now. Just look out the window, just for a minute, at the beauty, the green, the way the sun hits the leaves. How beautiful it is. I invite you to remember your walk to this building today. The fountains, the grass, the smells. How beautiful is our world. I'm so sad today because of the map that's over my head. And I invite you now to please take a look at it. This is a NASA map right now that shows 3/4 of the world is turning into desert. And that includes right here in California. My friends, it's not because God is smiting us. It's not because we're cursed. It's because of the choices that we're making as society that's turning our beautiful green world, the sights, the smells, the glory, the animals, the birds, all the creatures that we love so much. It's dying, my friends. It's dying. Kieran said something so sad today. Last month, the United Nations itself said 1 million species will be going extinct. 1 million. The animals we grew up loving and knowing about in our little books. Tigers, lions, rhinoceroses, elephants. They'll be gone. They're going, my friends. The beautiful places you grew up learning about in your storybooks will be gone also if we're not careful. If we're not careful. In India, I just left there a few days ago, and I have to admit I was in bed half the month last month because it was 120 degrees. We're used to having what's called the 9 days of heat. It means it gets so hot you can barely bear it. And then the monsoon rains come, and everyone opens their arms and glories in God and rain, and the life regenerates and renews. The crops bloom, and everything is beautiful once again. But for the first time ever, the 9 days came, and then 10 days, 11, 12, a month, more than a month, and it got hotter, and the rains didn't come. And I was lucky because we have a well, and we have the Ganga, the Ganges River in front of us. But so many children right now, so many women, so many people are outside right now while we're sitting here, waiting in line for hours, for a little water, for their families. Within 10 years, India will have 600 million people. 600 million people with zero water. 600 million people, zero water. Imagine, that's one nation. One nation Imagine, now what does this mean? It doesn't just mean no water to drink. It doesn't mean when I'm thirsty, this cup will be empty. It means when the crops are thirsty, the fields will be empty. It means when the people are hungry, the plates will be empty. And that's just one nation. And you look at this map. By the year 2040, now that's only, really, it's 10 years away, my friends. In 10 years, our world will have half the water that we need. Half of it. Half of it. What does it mean? Mass migration, mass genocide, mass displacement, mass hunger. It means if we don't do something right now, we'll regret it the rest of our lives. But it also means we can do something right now. It means we can do something right now. And I'm telling you this, you represent the people of this world. You represent the faiths of this world. You represent the hearts of the universe. And yes, that change can begin with you. Can I give a couple of quick examples of how? Number one, let's start locally, because people in California have been asking me, okay, it's in India, but it's not affecting us now. What can we do? Number one, the reason why the water is going is not just because the planet is getting hotter. And this is something we all have to really keep in mind. 85% of the water that is being used right now is being taken for agriculture. And half of that water is being wasted. We need to start looking at better ways of farming. And this isn't something to turn off on, okay, I'm not a farmer, I don't care. We are consumers and we are voters. And Californians, I'm going to speak to you right now because you have great power. Your power is in your vote. And I know this because I've been watching the great state of California, what you can do when you have your will, when you have your way. The fact of the matter is, what has been happening around the world is that we've been drilling, taking all the water out from under the earth and not putting it back. And so we're feeding crops across India and across the USA and across Africa and across anywhere else you want to look at. But as we do so, the water is not going back into the earth, and that means we won't have water to drink. So number one, we need to start saving our rainwater. What it means is here in a campus or in a city like this, if I dropped this water onto the floor, it would slosh off. It wouldn't go underground. If I poured it into the grass, it would go underground. We need more green spaces. We also need to channel the water that is sloshing around on our cities into underground reservoirs and hold on to it for the rest of the year. I saw here as I was walking up, there's a little grate that said, don't throw garbage here because the water goes straight to the bay. It means the rainwater that's coming down a few times a year, because this is a drought-prone area, is going straight to the bay and is not being used. That is enough water to last you the whole year, my friends. It's enough water to last the whole year. You don't need to drill down. You don't need to worry about the next drought if this water is actually utilized in the right way, in an easy way. And I invite you to look it up. Look up ways that you can start doing this, and you'll find YouTube videos, and you'll find tutorials, and you'll find, wow, this is easy. Amazing how easy it is to save the world. For the farms, it's so easy. For the farms, the same thing. They need to start channeling the water back underground and using it, drip irrigation. The water will stay where it needs to be, and our environment will be what it needs to be. Now, one last thing I want to show you, because I don't have a lot of time. I want to show you a miracle. Do you want to see a miracle? All right, do you want to see, Audrey Kitagawa, do you want to see a miracle? Yes? Sadhviji, do you want to see a miracle? Victor? Yeah? Everyone wants, okay.
I'm going to show you a video, and this video took place in China. The Loess Plateau is the size of the Netherlands. And it was a farm area that became so degraded that it became desert. And the dirt fell off the mountains because there was no plant life anymore to hold it down. The water, when it came down, it fell into the river with the ground. The river rose up because all the dirt was now in the river and flooded everyone downstream. And the people came together. The people came together and they said, let's replant. Let us come together as a community, let us hold our hands and let us plant and let us bring it back. Now, John, can you please show this video, 1 minute video? And I ask you, don't look away, don't look at your little machine. 1 minute, just look at this up here, okay? And then you can look at your machine. So can you please play the video?
When I first filmed Mr. Ta Fuyuan and his colleagues back in 1995, I had no idea this initiative could achieve such dramatic results. The effort that people put into converting their slopes into terraces has resulted in a marked increase in agricultural productivity. The higher yields are directly related to the return of natural vegetation in the surrounding ecological land. Now when it rains, the water no longer runs straight off the slopes. Trapped by the vegetation, it sinks into the ground, where it is retained in the soil, taking weeks and months to gently seep down and irrigate the fields and terraces below.
My friends.
Something now. Time is running out. That's the important message. And time is running out. We have 4 minutes left. So in those 4 minutes, I'd like to quickly go over to Amira and Melinda. One quick, simple thing that an individual can do in their daily life to make a difference.
We are consumers and we are voters. And there's something we can do in our communities to ensure that we have... I love what you said about how we are consumers and we are voters, and the choices that we make individually and collectively are significant. They're creating the solutions that we want to see replicated in this world, and so every choice we make, that's our offering. That's the reciprocity. That's like putting the water back in the ground.
I'd say, if you don't know the answers, find someone who does and become friends with them very quickly and bring everything you have to that relationship and seeds will bloom.
Yeah, one small thing.
I'd say find someone to work with, share your knowledge, share your friends with the issue, and choose to hold the fate of the earth and transform that by working on one little issue with a group of friends.
Thank you.
Be open to learning and connections across the globe.
Thank you.
Realize your power, realize your divinity, realize you can do it because you are brilliant and you've been chosen by God, and this is your time.
Thank you.
Ser responsable individual con cada uno cómo vive.
Be individually responsible of what you do and how you live.
Thank you so much. If I could just offer one of mine, one of the single most powerful things we can do is to try and adopt a vegan lifestyle. Sustainable living, sustainable taking ownership of what we put into our bodies and look at the impact that that will have. So that would be my contribution. I would like to conclude by thanking all of our wonderful speakers, Sadhviji, Amira, Melinda, all our wonderful panelists here. It is clear that actions speak louder than words. And in order to make any change, I would like to quote the Mahatma Gandhi, "Be the change you wish to see." Thank you.
Wow. Okay. What a beautiful, beautiful, powerful experience. So we're going to take about a 10-minute break, stretch, get a little water, come on back in. We'll start the next session right at 11:45. Thank you so much. Our panel, so please be seated. I'd like to introduce our moderator for this panel session. I'm going to ask my wonderful sisters down front to model Ahmed. Thank you. It's a great joy, particularly for me over these last couple of years, to work with Suzanne Cisco. Suzanne is the Executive Vice President and COO of the Asia Foundation. Previously working for the Ford Foundation, trained as a social anthropologist, Suzanne has served as consultant, university teacher, researcher throughout Indonesia, rural Northeast Brazil, highland Chiapas in Mexico, and brings to our world at URI a level of expertise and engagement that has just enriched our life in her service on the President's Council, our advisory council. Suzanne, thank you for chairing this session.
Thank you, Victor. Well, greetings, everybody. I feel really humbled to be here, and it's just a great honor to be with all of you and to be with this extraordinary panel. I would say yesterday we heard a lot of really we talked about very disturbing things, especially nuclear disarmament, the need for that. We talked about existential threats to the planet. We've seen this morning about a lot of healing that's taking place and how we can also be part of a healing process. So now we have a panel in which we have people who are actively working to build cultures of healing and peace building through very practical, but also creative and inspiring and visionary ways. There are people who are able to translate from one kind of community, one kind of sector to another, whether it's academia, business, activists on the ground, peace builders of all kinds. Sometimes people who don't even know they're working on efforts to build peace and heal the earth, but they are. So we want to talk about how we bridge divides. There's some very practical examples. And we hope that this will be an inspiring time for all of us. And we hope to come away with some concrete recommendations and calls to action that we can all participate in. We have a wonderful group of people here. Unfortunately, one of our panelists, Dr. El Sanusi, tried to be with us. He was going to be on the screen, but he's actually on his way to the UN for very important meetings representing URI's peace-building work there this morning, and unfortunately he couldn't join us, but he sends his greetings to all of you. So now I'd like to introduce our panelists. There will be a couple of films, so we have a little audio-visual here. I think it's been working really well. I hope it continues to work well. And I would just like to say one of the things in this panel was supposed to be linking grassroots and policy, but I really liked Sadhviji's formation, which was ground level and grand level. I thought that's a much more poetic way to think about the linkages that we're all trying to create. I'll just introduce them, and then they're going to go in order, and then we'll have some conversation and some calls to action at the end. So on my immediate right is Dr. Kate Cumbo. She's the executive director of Peace Jam Foundation, which in an amazing way links youth and Nobel Peace Prize laureates to build inclusive communities. Rabbi Serena Eisenberg is the regional director of the American Jewish Committee of Northern California, who works tirelessly to advocate for the human rights of Jewish communities and disadvantaged communities around the world. Dr. Brian Grimm brings a very different perspective, and one that I think maybe hasn't been heard enough in this meeting. He's the president of Religious Freedom and Business Foundation, and he works with business leaders and will help us understand how they play and can play a really important role in the peace-building work we're all trying to do. Reverend Susan Hayward is a senior advisor at the U.S. Institute of Peace for Religion and Inclusive Societies, and she'll probably talk about the multidimensional ways in which she and others look at the causes of conflict and unrest and peace, and how we can bring multidisciplinary perspectives to addressing them. And Akila Joji, who's the vice president for programs at Give to Asia, which is an organization that brings resources from the United States philanthropic resources to people all over Asia for disaster relief and all kinds of transformative work that they're doing. So without further discussion, I'd like to turn it over to Kate, who will speak to us, and she has a short film as well.
And how do you turn it on?
I think it's on.
It's not on.
I think it goes on when you talk.
Okay. It's not going on as I talk.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So I just want to stand up for a minute and acknowledge my pants. So these pants are my crazy pants. And why I wear them is because they represent for me the 14 Nobel Peace Laureates we get to work with. So I have the orange of the Dalai Lama. I have the hot pink of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and those of you who know him loves to wear pink. I have the beautiful, let's see, for Rigoberta Menchú, maybe some of this red right in here too. She wears her beautiful traditional Mayan clothing, and I can go on. And each of these faiths are represented in my crazy pants. So because I work with 14 Nobel Peace Laureates and young people around the world, I just gotta mix it up a little bit, right? We gotta be our authentic selves. And I think sometimes these conferences where we sit on a panel and you guys are listening passively and we're trying to give you these words of wisdom, and it's strange, and young people don't put up with it, so I'm gonna try and be entertaining and engage you in this process. So the Peace Jam Foundation was founded in 1996 after a summer of violence, and our co-founders just had this crazy idea, like these young people are carrying guns and they don't see any hope for themselves, and they're willing to shoot each other and over these like small conflicts in their communities, but really it was like this building rage. And they said, what if we put these kids together with Nobel Peace Laureates? Wouldn't that be cool? Well, that's how it started. So Dawn Engel, one of our founders, happened to know the Dalai Lama from some work she was doing when she was in Congress. And so this is back in the 90s, right, when you can actually get access to the Dalai Lama. They borrowed money, flew to India, and actually got an audience with him. He said, nobody's ever asked me to work with young people before. He's like, I'm in, but I'm not going to do it by myself. You have to do it with all my other friends, these Nobel Peace Laureates. So then they had to fly to South Africa and cold call, and sit on the steps of the Desmond Tutu's house and be like, hey, we had this great idea. And he was like, you guys are crazy. Betty Williams from Northern Ireland said when they showed up at her house in Ireland, they were like, I just was afraid of you. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Just go away. And now, 23 years later, this is our family. So they're just like, they're for them and they're there for us. And so now we've connected them with 1.25 million young people around the world. And we do that through curricular programming, and we do that through conferences that we host in very diverse areas around the world, where we actually bring them face to face, the good old face to face, right? Where they get to study the life and work of a laureate, and then actually spend 2 days with that laureate working on issues that matter to them in their community. So this is a service learning curriculum, so the young people have to go solve a problem in their community. The Nobel Peace Prize winners did not win a Nobel Peace Prize by complaining about issues, right? And Jody Williams from the International Campaign to Ban Landmine, my favorite quote of hers is, emotion without action is irrelevant. So that's the basic foundation of Peace Jam. And I think your beautiful slides about let's get going here because we're not going to survive. Our young people all feel this. So if you are 30 years or younger on this planet, please stand up. Do we have any? All right. 2 of you, 3 of you, awesome, 4. All right, 5, 6. Yeah, at heart. I was hoping you were all going to stand up. But the strange thing about youth is it's transitory, right? We all were youth, and all of you who are youth are actually going to be us, as terrifying as that is. So I think the thing we have to think about is, first of all, our young people today we're calling them the next great generation, right? They are fearless. You are fearless, and the resentment isn't there. You're like, yeah, you guys have messed it all up, right? Your systems don't work, yet you still keep trying to work within them, and we're just going to do it a different way, right? And so our job as the adults is we have a lot to teach, and we have systems that we do need to keep teaching them. We think democracy is pretty good, right? So we're going to keep teaching that. But the idea is that we, in our work, we picture the Nobel Peace Laureates, the moral authority of the world, the people who have been doing this work deeply in their communities, linking arms, walking side by side and in union with these young people, and they're leading this march. They're leading us out of the dark, right, into this light, and the rest of us, you can't have a march without people, right? So that's where we all come in, is we all have this expertise we bring to this party, right? And it's this march that we're all taking, and we're not taking no for an answer anymore, right? And so we're calling all of the youth within our hearts. All of us are young people too. And I'm calling all of you to understand that we all have a role to play here. And I think, we know that. So with Peace Jam, we have an invitation for you all too. So we're a youth organization, but as I just explained, is these young people and these Nobel Peace Laureates cannot do it without every single one of you. Right? So let's get more Peace Jam programming and these laureates and their lives out into your communities, out into your countries. We're in 41 countries. We have curricular programming, but we have actually host conferences in 12 to 15 places a year. So South Africa, we're in Liberia with Lema Bowie, we're in Ghana, we're in the United States, we are in East Timor with Jose Ramos Horta, our Nobel Peace Laureate there. We're in across Europe, right? But this is the kind of things. We already have the curriculum. We have the Nobel Peace Laureates. This is just a beautiful way that we can kind of help our young next generation help us, right? So we can talk more about Peace Jam and things like that, but I want to show a short video, and we have a beautiful website, and I'll be here for the rest of the day so we can talk more, but I want to leave time for our other beautiful people up here.
Peace Jam is a year-long program, basically an after-school program with teachers and mentors. They do service projects, and they learn about Nobel Peace Prize winners who travel around the world and inspire them to make their communities better.
The curriculum is really unique in the sense that it centers on the life and the work of these Nobel Peace Prize winners. You think about the Dalai Lama, what was he doing as a little boy, and how did that impact who they became? How do you transform the troubles in your life into a purpose?
In every region and every year, we have the Peace Jam Conference, where a Nobel Peace Laureate comes to the conference, where they actually get to meet the students in person. It's an amazing transformative experience for these youth.
Peace Jam, South Africa.
Who got the power? We got the power. Who got the power? We got the power.
There has been incredible progress in South Africa, and the optimism you feel in the country is palpable. We're going to be there with Lema Bowie. She's one of the most powerful speakers and people that I know. She won the Nobel Peace Prize for helping end the civil war in Liberia by bringing together Muslim and Christian women. She knows how to bring you up and make you feel like you can.
Young people, each of you carries some passion. Something that you want to do. When I was a little girl, I used to dream. And then my dream changed because of the war. I was dreaming about becoming a pediatrician and that I would treat children. When my dream changed, I kept asking myself, in all of those war years, what else do I have that I can contribute to the world? Do you have a talent? Do you have your voice? Are you like me, nosy, that you can jump into other people's business and try to bring common sense to a situation? We all have special and unique gifts. How do we use them to build our community?
I think we'll now turn to Rabbi Serena.
Kate, is this on? Yeah. Kate, that was a really hard act to follow because I'm dressed like a Democratic nominee hopeful. trying to jostle my way in a really big state. It is so inspirational to hear about Nobel laureates as moral exemplars, as inspirations for our youth. And as I've been at this conference and have gotten a chance to know Victor, each of the people here are really that kind of inspiration for one another and for the networks and the communities that you're engaged with. So I feel so honored and blessed to be here. And going back to the outfit and the fashion, I am actually wearing something notable and unique. It's my kippah, and it's not as exotic and beautiful as some of the hats in the room. But I'm mindful as a Jew that wearing a kippah makes you a target. I'm so blessed because I have my first grandson on Monday, and we'll be hosting a bris on Monday. And to be a Jew in the world, to welcome him into the covenant with the circumcision is actually to create a bullseye. Throughout our long history, we've been a persecuted minority. And so I'm well aware that to be proud and out and loud, we're in San Francisco during the week of Pride, is extraordinarily important. I work for an organization called the American Jewish Committee. It was founded in 1906 by German Jews who came to America and achieved just the smallest amount of financial prosperity. And their first act was to turn to their brethren in Eastern Europe who were suffering from pogroms. At that time, unimaginable attacks on Jewish communities when 26 dozens, hundreds of Jews were killed in small towns in Poland, including my own relatives. And so that group of German Jews founded an organization, the American Jewish Committee, and their first act, because in 1906, we here know what happened, there was an earthquake in San Francisco. They raised a little bit of money and sent it to the beleaguered Jewish community of San Francisco to rebuild their synagogue, Temple Emmanuel, if any of you have been there. And over the years, it was actually immediately evident that for Jews to advocate for the welfare and security of our own community, we must do that in partnership, in coalition, to advance the rights of all religious minorities, of many other communities. And as a minority group in this country, as we've achieved a really unprecedented privilege, not for all, but for many of our community members, we must do everything possible to leverage, to utilize that privilege to be a light, to advocate with and for other communities, both in the United States and around the world. And I'm so proud to be part of an organization that does exactly that throughout our history. So just as a few examples, I think the first amicus brief that AJC wrote was for the Catholic community because the Catholics as a minority were not able to send their children to Catholic schools. So the Jewish community wrote to advocate for them. Later, in building this interfaith dialogue with the Catholic Church and with the Catholic community, it led to, in 1965, some of you here are going to be able to pronounce this better than I can, Nostra Aetate. And that was a really groundbreaking acknowledgement of the Catholic Church that they needed to stop blaming Jews collectively for the death of Jesus and move forward to really counter anti-Semitism actively. And at the same time, the American Jewish Committee was working tirelessly for civil rights and wrote a landmark brief for Brown versus Board of Education. So fast forward, what are we doing now? This organization has 37 offices around the world. It's no longer an American organization, it's global. 37 partnerships with other Jewish communities. Of course, I think of Jewish community as the ultimate kind of grassroots network because we have little communities all over the world. And we have throughout our history, except for the times when we've been expelled and had the resilience to start over. And so building on these partnerships, we actually continue to advocate very assertively, both for the welfare of the Jewish communities in the countries where for the Jewish communities in those specific countries, as well as in partnership for others. So just as a few examples, and there are a lot, as you know, last October with the terrible shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue, which killed 11 and injured 7, within hours, the American Jewish Committee began to strategize, what can we do? And we built upon our incredible network of relationships, creating a hashtag, Show Up for Shabbat, that was within 1 week seen by over 250 million people. Senators from around the country, religious leaders, including some of you, legislators, celebrities, so many people retweeted this. And what they were doing was encouraging the Jewish community and others to show up as allies the following week, Friday night and Saturday morning, because it's very scary, as many of you here know, to show up at a religious community. I've been a congregational rabbi, in fact, here at Stanford, to invite your congregants to come when you could be the victim of terrible violence. It's terrifying. And so just this Show Up for Shabbat campaign with 250 million tweets by celebrities and congressmen and senators around the world was so heartening and such a show of encouragement and support. In fact, here in San Francisco, we had many, many synagogues that participated, and we had diplomats and legislators who showed up that next Friday. And that became a model, truly, because when Christchurch happened, of course, we already had our ready network to show up for others, to show up at the mosques. And there's many other examples I can give, but lastly, I'll just say I came from our national conference in Washington, where we launched just a few weeks ago a community of conscience, which is faith leaders from many different traditions in America calling upon all of us to 9 principles that will combat hatred and amplify the shared values that we have. And sometimes it means countering the hatred within our own communities, the extremism that we face within religious communities. Often it means combating the hatred that we might experience from our own government, to try to break through the rhetoric that dehumanizes, that demonizes one another, and instead amplify opportunities for civility. So as one example, we do have a National Muslim Jewish Advisory Council that does just that. Civic, business, religious leaders from around the country, of Muslim and Jewish leaders, coming together, advocating in Washington and around the country to combat hatred, specifically sponsoring particular legislation. They've had some success. And to also just show a model, to affirm that these partnerships are flourishing at a time when others might seek to promote the images or the stories of communities tearing one another apart, to silo or divide us, instead seeking every opportunity to promote the stories of where we are coming together. So that's just a little bit, and I know I want to make sure that other people have an opportunity, but thank you again so much for your time.
So I guess we have to do a fashion show. So for business, I want you to note, the tie, the jacket, the pants. That's business, right? No, it's not. Yesterday morning, I missed the sessions here because I was invited to Salesforce, which has the tallest building west of the Mississippi in downtown San Francisco. Salesforce is a huge company that just had a multi-billion-dollar merger with another company, and I was invited to come and talk about religious diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And the group that invited me, everybody had T-shirts on. I was the only person in the whole building with a tie. So just like this panel, where I'm diversity, by the way, in that building, being a white guy with a tie on, I was totally sticking out. So I increased their diversity quota. Well, what is in Salesforce, they have employee affinity groups, like many large Fortune 500 companies do, where employees can come together and support the business's mission by collectively coming together around identities. So they have different kinds of identities, LGBT, women, different races getting together, and religions, and they have a group called, in Salesforce, they have a group called Faith Force. And this group invited me to come and speak. The head of their diversity was there. And Faith Force is pulling together people of different faiths so that they can come out. That's how they express it. That in the workplace, they can come out as a religious person. In a major, I won't mention the corporation, but a major corporation in New York City, there was a man that came out as LGBT. He was a top executive and came out as a religious person, and he said coming out as a religious person was harder. So when you think of business, think of people. Think of people in t-shirts, not ties. They have 20,000 people working downtown in Salesforce, and they give tens of thousands, and they have some data that's not published, but they give tens of thousands of hours of volunteer time to religious groups across the city, like soup kitchens for the homeless and other types of faith-based organizations. They can opt in to give some of their salary to any charity they want, and they're giving millions to faith-based charities. So when you think of business, think a little differently. Now, I'm going to use the rest of my few minutes to show you a video of 12 of my friends. And again, I'm trying to get you to think about the potential of business in peacemaking. So every 2 years, my foundation, the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation, together with the United Nations Global Compact, that's the organization in the UN to bring businesses together to support UN goals, we give awards to business leaders advancing interfaith understanding and peace. Well, this is something all of you can do. Find businesses that are doing this or encouraging to do this and nominate them for the awards. Well, here's the video, my 12 of my friends. I have many more. This is just some of them. And you can see what these business people are doing to advance interfaith understanding and peace.
When immigrants relocate to Brazil, Jonathan Berezowski and his organization Migraflix help to economically empower and integrate newcomers into society. Through workshops and events, Migraflix allows people to embrace each other by first understanding customs and culture. Groups within the Middle East have different narratives about what has created culture and current events. Aziz Abdusera and Scott Cooper of Meji Tours recognize that allowing multiple stories to be told is a first step in fostering peace and cultural understanding. Frank Fredericks, founder and CEO of Mean Communications, led his organization in a coalition with the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, UNESCO, and other partners to produce a coordinated social media effort to spread awareness for the worldwide campaign Do One Thing for Diversity and Inclusion. Both through her organization and individual involvement, Kathy Ireland has supported the Hardwired Initiative to empower leaders in advancing freedom in the face of religious oppression and has raised the call to defend Yazidi women in Iraq. Perpetuating the trend in Indonesian poverty is the fact that many people lack the basic government documentation required for formal jobs. Y.W. Junadi has used his business know-how to host mass weddings that allow Indonesians to get marriage licenses, which allow their children to obtain legal status and receive education and other government benefits. Witnessing extreme poverty in Mozambique, Don Larson, founder of Sunshine Nut Company, started a business that works to revive the country's economy by providing work for tens of thousands and donates 90% of its profits to rescue local orphans and strengthen the community. Fuad Maksumi has watched the effect of Islamic fundamentalism on the youth of his country, in contrast with the good his own son was able to accomplish through business, and has used his organization to empower thousands of young entrepreneurs to establish sustainable businesses and hundreds of thousands to receive vocational training. The Foundation for Religious Literacy, created by Bruce McEver, helps professionals comprehend the business value in understanding and embracing religious pluralism in the workplace through its collaborative lectures and seminars. Baroness Nicholson, founder of the Amar Foundation, has championed the cause of helping displaced Iraq women, regardless of faith or ethnicity, to cope with the horrendous atrocities of war, providing mental and physical health treatment and offering resources for recreation, education, and vocational training. Seeing the struggles that many immigrants face when relocating to Canada, Abdo Ibrahim El Tassi works to provide training and development opportunities for newcomers. He has provided $1.7 million to immigrants in interest-free loans for business startups, mortgages, and university tuition. Taiba Taylor, 1952 to 2014, was a tireless international voice for Muslim women everywhere. Through her magazine and advocacy efforts, she helped people of all faiths to broaden their perceptions of the lives and potential of Muslim women as she worked to reveal their true accomplishments and talent. Conflict in Uganda has left many widowed mothers without the means to provide for their children. Brittany Underwood uses her mission-driven enterprise in order to empower local women through industry, giving them the means to provide for their families and escape crushing poverty.
The two DC-based folks showed up wearing basically the same uniform, which is not a surprise if you live in DC. I'm Susan Hayward. I'm with the United States Institute of Peace. Now, first, just a poll. How many of you are familiar with the U.S. Institute of Peace? Raise your hand. All right, that's decent. So for those of you who aren't aware, surprise, I have some good news. The U.S. government has a Peace Institute. It was created in 1984 by an act of Congress in order to support nonviolent, non-military means of preventing and responding to international conflict. And we do that through providing research and analysis, trying to glean some of the best practices from grassroots, from elite and civil society organizations, from various governments around the world about the means to prevent and manage conflict nonviolently, by providing tools and courses, online courses that are available for free. You can go to our website, as well as other kinds of action guides, and manuals to support various methodologies for peace building, whether that's mediation, nonviolent direct action, and so on. And by working with organizations and foreign governments around the world to support both official peace processes and peace building work. So we have various offices around the world. And all of this is supported by, for those who are Americans here, your taxpayer dollars. So please do visit our website. visit our website, support us, and find some of those resources on our website that I hope can be useful to you. So one of the things that we were tasked with doing here today in our panel was to talk about the relationship between grassroots peace building and policy making. So I just wanted, from the perspective of DC and USIP, to offer a few observations about what I think is distinct and particularly effective about interfaith peace building efforts to shape or inform policy-making decisions in Washington, D.C., and in some of the other global capitals around the world. So one thing that I think really makes the interfaith or the multi-faith peace-building perspective distinctive is the way in which it has the possibility of bringing a very multi-perspectival and multi-dimensional approach to understanding what drives conflict and what is necessary in order to drive peace. We know that conflict is driven by multiple factors, economic, social, political, and so on. And that in order to address these very complex challenges that drive fragility and drive violent conflict around the world, it's going to require, there's no one approach that's going to work. There's no one solution, whether that's economic or political or social or religious, that's gonna solve it. And it's not going to be solved by any one community, any one government, any one civil society sector, any one religious or ethnic or gender group. It's going to require a whole of society approach in order to do that. And I think the multi-faith perspective can offer that kind of a systems approach, a nonlinear approach, a multidimensional, multi-perspectival approach to understanding these various drivers of conflict and how to create a more systemic and wholesome approach to transforming the multiple drivers of conflict and violence, as well as bringing some of the diverse coalitions. I can tell you that in DC, there's a lot of groups that are advocating just for their tribe, that are advocating just for their national group, their religious group. And so what makes really distinctive the multi-faith groups who are trying to inform policymaking in DC is the fact that they're not just advocating for their own tribe, that they're recognizing the need, as Serena was saying, to advocate for one another, recognizing how these various drivers of conflict are often, and violence, are often mutually enforcing. And so they need to be collectively addressed, that the violence happens against one group is often fed by and fuels violence against other groups as well. And so that ability to advocate across different tribes draws the attention of policymakers, and I think can be very effective and persuasive. I would also say that there was a lot of focus yesterday on the religious drivers of violence and discrimination, and I do think that the multi-faith perspective and advocacy has a distinct role to play in addressing some of those religious dimensions, but I would also encourage you to think about how religious actors and religious groups also have distinct understandings of some of the other drivers of conflict as well, political and economic. And so the extent to which the multi-faith perspective can address the religious as well as some of those other drivers of conflict, I think is what makes them particularly effective. And to that end, the various traditions that we come from have millennia of dealing with violent conflict within their own societies and have come to understand what drives conflict in ways that are overlapping across traditions, but also bring particular insights and perspectives from the different traditions. And what I think is remarkable is that when the different advocates or perspectives from different religious communities bring what makes distinctive about how their tradition understands the drivers of conflict and how to support peace in order to create that more holistic approach to peace building. So, for example, when Buddhist communities are able to articulate the ways in which greed and anger and ignorance, the three poisons, are a driver of conflict, and so what it means to build peace from a Buddhist perspective, understanding also some of the social psychological elements that can impact and fuel various cycles of violence. And the Abrahamic perspective on structural forms of injustice, political and economic, and so on. All of these are offered different insights as we all, as blind men and women touching the elephant that is peace, see different perspectives, different components of what drives violence and peace. And it's that holistic understanding, because it's the social psychological, it's the structural forms of discrimination that are all factors in driving violence and support peace. So the extent to which we draw from the religious traditions and the experiences and offer those particular insights from those perspectives and do it as a coalition, I think it can be very persuasive in DC. And then finally, one thing that as noted, I am an ordained Christian minister, and I'm working in a quote-unquote secular institution within Washington, D.C. And I sometimes see my job as being about helping to serve as an ambassador between the two worlds. I've been trained in how to speak the language of policy and wonk, and I also come as a person of faith who is seminary educated and knows a bit about theology. There's still a lot more I need to learn, but knows a bit about theology and how to use the language of God and meaning and so on in order to talk about some of these issues related to violence. I see, as I navigate between these two worlds and try to help them communicate with one another, that there's a great deal of education that's needed on both sides in order to be able to speak to one another effectively. And so the extent to which, in the policy-making world, I seek to encourage a more nuanced understanding of the complexities within and across different faith traditions and about the kinds of priorities and the ways in which people of faith address these issues and address some of the biases within the policy-making world sometimes that folks sometimes hold about people of faith and seek to broaden that perspective in order to help them communicate better and develop relationships with faith communities. I'm doing that at the same time that I'm with faith communities, seeking to help them understand how policymaking is done, how to translate some of their concerns into language that's going to be effective, and speak to some of the legal issues, the political issues, and so on. And so so I encourage you to continue to do that kind of education of yourselves in order to be able to navigate effectively within those halls and speak that language at the same time that you do not ever diminish what makes you distinctive as faith actors, which is precisely that bringing that human dimension and that divine dimension that is at the heart of so many of these critical issues that decisions are being made about in Washington, D.C. So you sometimes need to know the language in order to speak effectively to those who speak that language, but from within your own frames of meaning, if that makes sense. And so I can add some more recommendations in the discussion, but just as a start, I think there's a great deal to reiterate that the multi-faith and the multi-dimensional and the faith-inspired perspective that you bring to understanding what drives violence and how to support peace can bring to the policymakers and the policymaking decisions in DC. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Akila Jogi. I'm representing an organization called Give to Asia, which is quite different from some of the other players here, but I'm incredibly honored to be here on the table with such wonderful panelists. So in my short career, I'm recognizing I'm quite young here, I had dedicated my career to working with nonprofit organizations across the world. I've primarily worked in countries with significant Muslim populations, and I was working with young people, amazing young people, who are dedicated and activated to help their communities in amazing ways. And I was working with local organizations, grassroots organizations, through the means of education in India, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Israel, Gaza, all around the world. But one thing that kept facing these organizations, that kept coming up when I was working with these grassroots organizations was, where am I going to get the money from? How am I going to be sustainable? How do I connect with funders that are in Western countries and or European countries to become more sustainable? How do I continue doing the good work that I know is important for my community? How do I keep growing? How do I keep helping? And money was such a big aspect to that, unfortunately. It was, and there was such a gap of knowledge, of understanding, how do I make relationships with donors? How do I bridge that gap? And so, you know, as I was going through my career, I landed at Give to Asia, and Give to Asia is an organization that does that. It helps bridge that gap between global organizations that are based in the United States and with local grassroots organizations that are based in Asia. We've been around for about 20 years, and our entire mission is to help strengthen grassroots organizations and strengthen grassroots communities by building trusted networks with US donors. So we work with companies, Fortune 500 companies in the United States, as well as families, high net worth families, who are interested in giving back to their communities in Asia, but don't know where those organizations are, or don't know how to support those grassroots organizations. And on the other hand, we're working with local organizations in 25 different countries across Asia who are doing incredible work to help strengthen their communities, educate their children, alleviate poverty, and reduce conflict and violence in their communities, but need more funding and more support. It's been a learning process for me, right? Because I'm coming from the grassroots communities aspect, and I'm coming into this world of business. And what I learned first and foremost is that the gap exists primarily because of language. It was just how people dress, right? And how people talk, and how people understand each other. There was a common platform that there are people in the business world who want to help. They want to give back to the local communities. There are families here in the United States that want to give back to local communities, but they don't speak the same language. And so our role at Give to Asia is to help make that bridge, how to create that bridge. And I can share some of the lessons I've learned. So I've learned that families and companies in the United States often have a deep vested interest in helping the communities in other countries. But they often are quite scared of the word conflict, or they're scared of the word violence prevention, because they're worried about controversy. And so what we oftentimes tell local organizations is we have to be very careful about how we put together proposals. We have to use language that other folks can understand. And we have to use and highlight intersectionality quite a bit. So, for instance, if we are talking about violence prevention in the Philippines, it's often quite helpful if proposals are framed in a way that other folks can understand. And one way that's quite successful is if you use education of youth, or livelihood training, because those are words that other folks can understand on the corporate side or the business side. And so how do we create a bridge for companies to understand what important work is happening in the local communities just by using different words? I've also learned the importance of building relationships with employees. You mentioned this. There are employees in companies that want to give back. They want to give back to religious communities, and they want to give back to their communities in areas that are far away and remote, but they don't know how. And so I've learned that it's really important for grassroots organizations to build relationships with businesses and to cross that bridge and to network with folks that may not speak the similar language than you. And then one other aspect is the reason why Give to Asia supports local community-based organizations is because we understand that local community-based organizations, more than global organizations and more than we would ever know here in the United States, understand the complexities of problems in the communities. Grassroots organizations know how complex situations are. They're invested in the community, and they're not going away anytime soon. And because they understand the complexity of the situation in their communities, they're more likely to come up with solutions and interventions that work, that are more effective. And so I just lost my train of thought. And so working with the local community-based organizations is really, really important. But companies oftentimes are very siloed in their funding, and so they may not understand the complexity of the situation, but they only fund particular areas. So, for instance, Salesforce, we just mentioned Salesforce, they tend to fund education issues quite a bit. And so coming up with a proposal that addresses the complex situations in the countries and the complex violence issues in various different communities is important, but if you focus in on education, you're more likely to be successful in getting attention and support and funding from players, global players across the world. So some of those are lessons that I've learned, but there's so much more that can be gleaned when you're trying to build connections across bridges. But it is important to know that there are global organizations that are deeply invested in supporting local communities, and there is a gap, and how you bridge that gap is something that we need to be creative about and think outside of the box. But we are all on the same page, and we all want to support and make the world a better place. It's just a matter of language oftentimes.
Thank you. Well, we have such a... Yeah. We have fashion show, yeah, right. Yeah. I thought we have such an extraordinary panel, and some of these people know each other and work together, some of them don't. And I thought I'd give any of you the opportunity to ask a question of one another, or maybe to draw out something from one of your colleagues that you might think is really important that they haven't mentioned yet. Does anybody have a question or a comment among you?
I'm curious, we do a lot of work with, so the religion program, I forgot to mention, the religion program at USIP is actually the oldest thematic program at the Institute. It was created in 1989. And we've done a lot of work throughout the years to ensure that our work within religious communities is inclusive and is diverse, that we're working with male religious leaders, female religious leaders, old religious leaders, young religious leaders and actors. And across different religious perspectives. I'm curious, because it can sometimes, what we hear cited from older religious actors and younger religious actors is concerns about that generational divide and about how to help to foster and facilitate some of the relationship building and some of the communication bridge building, as we've all been mentioning, that's needed between the generations. And you hear frustrations from some of the young people that when they get together with the senior clerics in particular, they're just getting preached at, and they're not necessarily being heard for the perspectives and the insights that they bring and their hopes for how to move forward. So I'm curious about what you've learned about how to foster some of that that constructive intergenerational divide and relationship building that really is going both ways.
So the first example I'll give is, so Peace Jam is education, inspiration, and action. So the inspiration of the laureates and the young people and all of us, but really the laureates coming in with their inspiration. The education is we have curricular programming where they address the root cause of like different dimensions of problems. And for example, in the Dalai Lama's chapter, they're talking about compassion and what that actually means and what it actually looks like and what are the skills you actually bring out into the world. But the third piece is this action piece. And so we have a Billion Acts of Peace campaign where our Nobel Peace Laureates have all gotten together and said, these are the 10 most pressing issues facing the planet. Let's work on these together. Since then, the UN has come up with the sustainability goals. They align perfectly. And so all the young people have to do a project. Right? And they can't do like a volunteerism. They have to look at the root cause of a problem in their community. So they often have to go, and there's certain questions in the curriculum they have to go through, like who makes decisions about this issue, right? What else is being tried? You know, like they have to actually get the statistics, and they have to get 2 to 3 different perspectives and experts on that issue from various different perspectives and camps, so to speak, so that they can really understand it so it doesn't become groupthink jam. Right? And so when we brought this, when we were working with the Dalai Lama in the Tibetan Children's Village several years ago, the Dalai Lama was like, we're all about like self-enlightenment, you know, and he was like, we got to learn something from those Catholics because they're all about service. And so he sat down with the young people, and here over 50 years, the Tibetans had been guests and honored guests in India, and yet they don't serve at all to give back to the Indian community. So we were able to work on a water project with them. And so the young people not only worked with the Dalai Lama on this, but they had to work with the local water officials, and they were trying to get some water down to a shanty town, a slum. And so they first bought them all these beautiful buckets to collect the water, and all 300 families said, we have no water. These are beautiful buckets, but we have nothing to put in them. So they had to go back and start working with the spiritual leaders of the community are always the gatekeepers, right? And so they had to begin to get permission from those. The Dalai Lama was one of them, but the Indian leaders were also. Then the politicians, and they had to start bribing politicians to be able to build this pipeline. And so that was just sort of one example. But we were just in Ghana, and we were doing the young people were doing this project in a local community, and we all had to go and have a formal meeting with the chiefs, and the young people had to do a formal meeting with the chiefs. And it was all about that root cause of a problem that they were going to work on together. And so it was like an invitation, but it was also an acknowledgement that we can't solve the problem without the adults giving us these resources and permission and walking with us. And for the first time, it was like these adults were being approached by young people who already had an idea of what they wanted to work on, what they wanted to do, and were inviting the elders of the community to join them. And the project changed because of that dialogue, right? They couldn't do everything they wanted to do, and they had to tamper some things down. But the point was that those kinds of projects end up being sustainable because they've been sanctioned by the adults, and the adults start to get involved. We had a cholera cleanup in Ghana one year. The young people were like, okay, so we have these cholera outbreaks, and it's from trash and sewage in these gutter things. Why don't we just clean it up? So they got permission to go and clean it up, and then they went out and did community education. Well, they pissed off some of the local officials who were like, wait, you can't just go do that. And they were like, we just did. And so then they realized that antagonizing your adults isn't helpful. So they had to, the next project they did, they made sure that they brought those adults in the beginning of the conversation and a facilitated conversation of how can we work together to address this issue. So sometimes they have luck, sometimes not, but it's because they have to work on an issue that they cannot do in isolation. Action always helps that bridge that divide.
Thank you. Anybody else want to ask a question or make a comment? Serena.
I'd love to ask about working in a government institution in Washington, and this probably applies globally to some of the governments which are becoming increasingly nationalist in other areas in Europe, et cetera, around the world. How do you, how does that impact your work? I've heard mixed things about the way certain organizations in Washington are getting funded or defunded, depending on the administration. Just curious to know more.
So one of the advantages of being at USIP, it's an independent federal institution, which means that we're created by Congress, we're funded by Congress, but our independence is protected in the sense that we don't have political appointees at the top of our leadership. So when the political winds shift, when new administrations come in, we stay steady. Our leadership stays steady, and we stay focused on our mandate and our mission, which allows us to weather some of the transitions and the storms that happen in DC. That said, we're going to be impacted when there are some of these shifts, and we've gone through periods of a great deal of support from the Hill or from various administrations, or some skepticism about our mandate and our mission. I think what we seek to do in the midst of that is just stay connected to the grassroots and to the peace builders around the world with whom we're working, to stay focused on supporting them, to put our faith in the work of the peace builders around the world that are doing good work, and to continue to lift their stories in DC with the conviction that by so doing, that speaks to the worth of peace building generally, of offering these kinds of solutions to these complex problems. And we've been able to weather the storm. So, 35 years later, we still exist, and we're still continuing to do the work. And if anything, we continue to grow in our ability to do this work. And we have a great deal of advocates across the different political parties and also across different sectors. So we actually faced a period of a little bit of existential crisis several years ago, and it was actually a lot of the folks within the military who came to our defense. Just as General Mattis was saying yesterday, it's often the seasoned soldiers who yearn the most for peace, who understand the scourge of war, and who understand the worth of diplomatic or nonviolent grassroots peace-building efforts in order to address local security issues, in order to ensure that war is not necessary. And so they've been some of our most powerful advocates at times of threat to us.
Thank you. Brian, I have a question for you, and it's probably one you get very often, which is, how do your business colleagues come across as genuine and really trying to show that they're not just I don't know what sometimes in the environment we say greenwashing or whatever, what are they doing to ensure that people understand that they're genuinely committed and they're not just doing like good CSR because they have to?
Yeah, well, some companies don't put a priority on social engagement. And all companies need to make money or they don't exist. So that has to be the beginning of our understanding with a business. But there's many different initiatives to help give tools to business to be visible about what they're doing. And so, for example, on the sexual orientation, maybe many people are familiar with the Corporate Equality Index. that the Human Rights Campaign developed. My foundation, together with the Tannenbaum Center for Interreligious Understanding in New York, developed a corporate religious diversity assessment tool to help companies take an assessment of how well they're doing on being open and inclusive as it comes to religion in the workplace. So I think some of these tools that come from NGOs, the United Nations, the UN Global Compact has developed some measurement tools to see how well they're putting to practice the SDGs. So, you know, as the saying goes, if you don't measure it, it doesn't count. And so I think that that's one thing that we can do to help them. And I found that companies are not, they don't object to these tools. So the tool that we developed on corporate religious diversity assessment, we had 3 major corporations help work with us to develop that. So companies, I could say this, companies that are really doing something actually want to show it off. And I'll just give one example. Accenture, the global consulting company, their name actually means, Accenture means like accent on the future. That's what their name means. Last year during the National Day of Prayer, they had an opt-in day of prayer for all their employees in the United States, so in the National Day of Prayer. And they didn't advertise that. You know, they're not trying to get points for that. So I think sometimes you can see what they're doing by what they're not publicizing. So if they're tooting their horn and that, you know, it doesn't always mean they're really doing that. But I found that many companies are engaging and they're not, you know, they're not trying to get credit for it. And something you said, companies are, no, I lost, you're contagious. I just lost my thought.
It's lunchtime.
I know, but yeah, and I'll say one other thing. We often don't know how to talk the language of business and talk to them. And so Biff, sitting back there in the back, said, well, when you're there, Brian, see if they'd be interested to work with URI. And URI, I don't think, has ever asked them. And I said, would you all be interested to be in contact with URI? And they said, what's URI? Was the first question. And I explained a bit, and they said, sure, introduce us. So you know, I think there's a lot that we just think business is, you know, the big, you know, bad polluters or whatever images we have. But sometimes if we just ask and reach out to people we know in businesses, they'll be responsive.
Great. Well, before we conclude, I thought we'd just have a quick lightning round, starting with Akila, for takeaway, whether it's some really great recommendation or a call to action that we can all go off to lunch with and think about.
I should just lose my track of thought right now. Reach out and learn each other's languages in different sectors.
So as I was saying, the multi-tribal advocacy is very powerful in DC, and that goes not just across different national, religious, gender groups, but also against different civil society organizational groups. So when you have different civil society organizations coming together to advocate for something that goes beyond just their project, then that can also be very powerful in DC. I'm going to add one more if I can really quickly. There's a realm of advocacy called Women, Peace, and Security that is about understanding the particular experiences that women have in violent conflict and their priorities in peace building, and ensuring that those priorities and their participation is centered in peacemaking and peace building work. And there's often an absence of faith-based groups and religious groups in some of those advocacy efforts. So I'd also make a recommendation to find out about the realm of women, peace, and security, as well as youth, peace, and security, and others, and participate in some of those as faith actors, because you have a very powerful role to play in some of those efforts.
So I would say take out a piece of paper and a pen. Really? I'm waiting. Okay, you can write it on your iPhone. That would be modern. All right, write down these words: Global Business and Interfaith Peace Awards. Global Business and Interfaith Peace Awards. You can Google it. And I challenge you to find a business in wherever your spheres of operation are, whatever countries, and find a business that's doing something in the area of interfaith understanding and peace, and nominate their CEO for one of those awards. So businesses love when people recognize the good they're doing. And that's the best approach to business, is not to come in and say, oh, would you fund me? Would you do this? Would you do that? But say, I really like what you're doing. I'd like to see you get recognized for that. Positive approach.
I have several, so I'll
Great.
try to be
Go
quick.
ahead.
And I think about them in the category of oys and joys. Oys, for those of you who don't speak Yiddish, means the heartache, and the joys are obvious. So the negative and the positive, sacred attunement to both sides of that same coin. So starting with social media, we know the oys, the just virulent spread of hate speech and terrible, vicious ideologies online. But when we look at social media, we have to also consider the incredible power to amplify the good. I mentioned that within 1 week, 250 million tweets to rally people to show up in person. When the German ombudsman told German Jews just a few weeks ago that it's no longer safe for them to wear kippot, their yarmulkes, in public, a German newspaper published a picture of a yarmulke and encouraged everybody to print it out and cut out that little circle and wear it on their head. So the oys and joys of social media, of media, the press, we can amplify this for the good. Number two, when I look at the oys, I mean that we have to be really vigilant about the ways that we are really looking to combat bigotry and hate. The head of my organization, David Harris, calls it wearing trifocals. We have to be looking for hate from the extreme left, from white supremacy, and also from political, religious extremism of several different kinds. And it's often the case that we might call it out for the political party that's opposed to us, for political means, but rather we really need to look within and see it within our own left or right or religions, and just be vigilant about the ways that we're really trying to identify the nuances of that. So that's the oi, but what's the joy? The joy is to amplify the good. We talked about amplifying uplifting role models, uplifting partnerships. I want to close by uplifting our faith traditions. Today in the newspaper I saw Senator Gillibrand at the Homestead Migrant Detention Camp. And I didn't pay any attention to her because my friend, Rabbi Robin Fisher, was next to her wearing a T-shirt that said, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. We should love our neighbor as ourselves. We have to hold up these values and wear them on and be proud to share the truths of our tradition that are universal human truths in ways that will inspire all of us. So the last thing I'll say is just, it's coming up on the 75th anniversary of the UN, as was mentioned last night. It was founded in San Francisco. Our organization, the American Jewish Committee, is planning to host a series of events in San Francisco in the next, in the spring of 2020. We're looking for partners. The diplomatic, the interfaith, legislators, all people who can come together and really explore the power of global diplomacy for a peaceful future. So please see me if you have any interest in getting involved in those programs.
All right, I'll be brief because we're starving at this point. Engage the young people in your community. Those are the young people both that are already leaders and showing leadership in your faith communities, but also just around issues that matter to you. If you don't have half of your team being young people, then you're doing all the work for no reason, right? So, so the other is look for the young people who are the unlikely leaders, right? This could be your own children, your own nieces and nephews, and bring them in. I just brought my nephew to Ghana, and now he's like on fire and going to help me with a whole bunch of social media stuff. So remember that this generation is waiting to be asked, and they're not going to continue to ask for long. So go ahead and reach out, grab them, because they're going to just pass us by. We're honoring 12 of the world's greatest young leaders right now for our Hero Awards. We have Greta Thunberg from Sweden, as well as Little Miss Flint, who's cleaning up the water in Flint. The young people in the United States, it's Youth versus the Government. They're suing the U.S. government for the environmental degradation. There's 21 plaintiffs on that, and some of our Native American communities are part of that as well. These are just a few of them. Some young entrepreneurs who are really working on racism in Alabama and some other things. So again, you can go to billionacts.org and vote for and help us kind of bring some social media presence to these young people and their projects. So thank you. And I want to give a shout out to Monica Willard. So Monica is the board chair of Peace Jam Foundation, and so I just want to thank you for inviting me here. And Monica, you are I.
Yeah, I don't need that. Well, I just want to end the fashion show. I didn't plan on this, but I'm wearing a dress actually it's from Cambodia, and that doesn't look very native, but it's got all these intertwined threads that looked very chaotic to the person who made it, but they made it all fit together. So I'm hoping that in the spirit of fashion, which I hadn't planned on, that we're all seeing the connections and the ways in which we can all work together, even if it doesn't seem likely, to really build peace in the world. So thank you all so much.
Let's thank our panel for this wonderful presentation. So lunch awaits. I want to say two things before that. One is that we will be showing the Valerie Kaur's keynote address during lunch, so we're going to be back on schedule, and we have an extraordinary presentation by 15 young leaders who've come from all over the world, which will be happening at 2 o'clock just after lunch. So invite you to come have a delicious lunch with us. One announcement from my colleague and brother Vincent. Come on up.
Thank you. All right, my name is Vincent. I'm one of the Baraza members for the multi-region. So over here, I'd like to touch base with the multi-region CCs. If you are part of the multi-region CC, or if you are representing your organization, which is also part of the multi-region, could you please come forward to come and touch base with me, because I'd like to know more about you. And at the same time, I'd like to let you know what are the plans which you have for this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have a great lunch together. And thanks to the panel one more time.